Santucci gonna try and put the power down. Side by side over the jump and across the finish line. And Jason Ruona grabs the championship.
Before the reactor hit the market, it was already winning on the track.
What we wanted as high performance as we could out of the box.
The JConcepts REACTOR is a Stage 2 retro-inspired monster truck platform designed for racing performance and builder flexibility.
That's why it has a lot of aluminum machined items. Carbon fiber, fin style turnbuckles and chassis braces on here that really look like the stuff that we're using in off-road racing.
Previous conversion kits like the Regulator proved that retro monster trucks could be competitive on modern race courses. But the next step was something entirely new. A purpose-built kit designed from the ground up.
It's wolfed out is what we say, which is worked over and left faster. That's what we're saying that the chassis is. You don't have to buy this thing and then buy 1,000 different aluminum items to make it work.
The Reactor project started with a simple idea: build a retro monster truck platform that could perform like a modern race machine.
We want the chassis and the kit to be where the customer is happy with the looks, the performance, but they're gonna need the tires, they're gonna need the wheels, and they're gonna need the body for it. And our strategy is that they can look to JConcepts for those items to finish it out.
The Reactor platform offers two primary wheelbase options, each designed for different driving styles and track conditions.
Our first two kits are going to be what we would consider a slider in the business, which is it doesn't have tires and wheels and a body, because we feel like a lot of people that are into this already, they have those items or they know which one they want to purchase.
So what are you actually getting with the Reactor? Let's break it down. From drivetrain design to chassis geometry, nearly every component was built with performance and adjustability in mind.
We wanted to have a roll cage on it. That was something that in the Stage 2 monster truck era, they started rolling over the trucks, they started crashing, and they had to start incorporating more safety into the chassis. There was a lot of difficulty that comes with having a roll cage in RC, because whatever you decide to design, the size of the cage, the position of the cage, it might work great for one body, but it might not work for another. We tried to figure out a way that we could make this adjustable and user-friendly for the person that's trying to accomplish many of these goals at one time, which is I want the roll cage look, but I want it to fit the body that I like. We have three different heights of these side roll bar options. There is a 0 height, we call it, a +5 and a +10. The taller the cab of the body that they're using, they can fill that space with a taller cage. So in this situation, 13-inch wheelbase truck, we're using a little bigger body, went for the taller roll cage sides so that it would fill the cab of the body and make it look like it was built for that body. You can also slide the position of this cab. So with the screws that we have located down here, you loosen on both sides, and this whole cab you can move forward or back and locate it in a slightly different position to accommodate the different bodies. Then what we had to come up with was a way to incorporate these chassis cage tubes that come from the center to the front and from the back of the cab to the rear tower. We added some pivoting mounts on the front and the back, a pivoting system where you can simply just change the length of the tubes in between the pivots, and that can help you slide the entire assembly front to back. What you really want to do with this is you get the truck built, you put the cab on it, you decide what body you're going to use. You set the body down. Do you like the cab placement inside the body? Once you like that, then you set up the length of these to accompany where you place the cab. These are injection molded plastic parts. So like in this situation, they're in these pivoting pieces. You can pop this piece out, and this is the length that we cut it to for this particular truck. It's simply just for aesthetics. Traditionally, you would see these come up a little bit higher, but we held these lower because we wanted all that action to be below the bed of the truck. The body mounts are pretty large, beefy diameter for durability, and it's the same setup front and rear. Mostly on these trucks, if you run a pickup truck body, the rears are usually set a little lower than the front. We also have a very long body mount that comes with the kit if you want to use like a panel style body or SUV, we can get the body mounts up here with our longer body mount that comes in the kit. So a lot of adjustability. We're trying to make the options and the adjustability to kind of cater to what's out there and what we feel people are going to want to do once they get these trucks in their hands. So the cage, the body mounts, this whole assembly was a real critical part of designing and putting this truck together and making it really like a functional, realistic looking piece.
The reactor uses sealed oil-filled differentials, designed for consistent power delivery and durability on the racetrack and beyond.
We have an oil-filled diff, which in this genre is very rare. You can easy access the diffs from the front or the rear. We got the steel drive shafts that connect to it, and you can pull the diff out, you can change the fluid, rebuild it. The entire axle had to be designed so that we have a series of gears in there to go with a front gear differential. One thing that's unique about this truck, the ability to add an idler gear in the rear where it reverses the rotation in the transmission so that the motor can run at a normal rotation in the rear and the front. That helps more so if you go to a brushless combination. We're using and recommending a brushed combination front and rear, kind of the easiest, least expensive setup. If you go to brushless, it's nice to be able to run the rear motor in a normal rotation so you don't have to deal with timing issues of the motor. It also allows us to have the motor sort of in a lay down configuration, a little bit closer to the ground, so that if you're racing these trucks where you have a high powered system, the motors and everything is as low as we can get it in terms of being a nice handling vehicle and low center of gravity for high traction.
Beyond the internals, the way power is delivered was just as important to the design.
What we wanted to do is essentially improve on the motor on axle concepts that were out there. What we could notice is in the higher traction situations, having the motor on axle setup had some advantages over running the motor in the center with a transmission with drive shafts to a front axle. Not only did it eliminate sort of those torque steer problems of the way the drivetrain functioned, but it also put the motor at a height that was really low. We designed a transmission case that is symmetrical front to back. The axle can be used front and rear on the vehicle. We made all these parts so that it would perform the best for acceleration benefits, for stopping benefits. The motor, the height of it was better for that type of racing. And we're really happy with is the tracking ability, the straight line tracking ability when you get on and off the power, that the truck performs kind of equally on both sides. In this case, when you're competing or racing, the jumps are very narrow. You can get disqualified if you're falling off jumps and this and that. And then we also incorporated a dual padded slipper clutch similar to a 10 scale off-road car of today. Then we also have adjustable gearing. We have a dual motor plate setup where the motor can slide along and you can change the gearing quickly. So the transmission case, the transmission, the axles are really the key part of where we started with this and the most difficult part of the whole thing in general, because we wanted to have all these possibilities between the diff, the adjustable gear ratio, the slipper. We incorporated all that into the axle.
Power is one thing, but control is what makes it usable. At the center of that is the reactor's pivot ball suspension design.
Anytime you have a motor mounted on the axle, it has the tendency to move the axle when the motor is rotating one way or another. In the real monster truck world, they're always concerned about axle wrap, which is a situation where the axle can twist against your suspension system or the leaf springs. You have to have a way to hold the axle from twisting and turning under power and under braking. With the Clodbuster, they had a way of handling it with a small little brace off the transmission. That handled the transmission from moving or wrapping in certain directions. So on the truck here, we've added a pivoting system. This is really what controls the whole suspension, and the idea was the reactor name was based on the reactive nature of this suspension system. Without these type of things, and the motors mounted in these positions, it will just turn the axle up and down depending if you're on or off power.
Handling was another major focus of the reactor platform, with adjustable geometry and a steering system designed for precision.
In conjunction with our axle design, we have aluminum axle tubes here. We can change the length of these axle tubes. So if you want a wider truck without using wider wheel hexes, we can run longer axle tubes, make the truck wider. The other thing that it allows us to do is we've mounted the caster block on these axle tubes, and it's of a clamping nature so that when you release the clamp with the screws, you can turn the caster block in a certain range. That allows us to add caster to the front end and improve the steering characteristics of the truck. Caster is important because it allows the vehicle to turn where the inside tire is really at a different angle than the outside of the tire. If a vehicle that has zero caster in the other direction, when the wheel turns, it turns out. Whereas when you have caster built in, it actually angles the other way, which is more appropriate for turning and cornering, an aspect to all these performance-oriented RC cars. The adjustable caster is a huge improvement over what we can do previously. The front is certainly the most important, but the rear, with the rear hub carriers, they're clamping, so you can change them as well. And we've also included in the hub carrier an insert where it is 1.5 degrees of toe in. Something that we also didn't get on previous vehicles was the ability to have any toe in on the back. We found in off-road cars it's nice to have a little bit of toe in, keeps you tracking straight. With the RC monster truck, we felt like that's something we really haven't had, and it was a nice feature to have just a little bit of toe in. You can barely see it, but it allows the thing to, I think, work, perform, and track a little bit better. The clamping style rear hubs, the ability to have a hub carrier, toe in built in, that's just another one of the big innovations. Coming off the servo itself, we have the solid servo horn. We go to a steering link and then a rack between the two bell cranks, but we pivot here in the center. It allows a lot of the strength of the servo to go straight through the bell cranks and hold your steering position. With the addition of steering stops we have built on the steering block, it allows you to hold that position very securely and allows the truck to really just turn better. With the leaf springs, our goal is that the racer can start with a long primary leaf spring. There's a secondary leaf spring that comes in the kit. They can stack those up to get basically a stiffer spring action out of it, raise the ride height, make the spring action a higher rate. They can also lower it. You can remove the secondary leaf springs and you can have a softer feel. Having a leaf spring setup was something we tried to concentrate on because it has not really existed very well in the RC community. We wanted to see if we could perfect it and make it work on a retro monster truck so it still remains looking like late 80s, early 90s.
To complete the package, the Reactor is designed to work with a wide range of electronics, wheels, and body options.
We used the center section in the cradle to mount the batteries. We added these rubber injection molded battery straps on both sides. We have 2 injection molded shelves that bolt in between the chassis plates. That's where our speed controls or speed control and receiver are placed. It's a simple double-sided tape application. Get those in there where you want. We run the motor wires front to back, and then we tap into the speed control for your positive and negative, and then you're off to the races with the electronics. We tried to get that battery as low as we could without interfering with the ground clearance. You know, as we've seen with the mud pit, it's nice to have this ground clearance. Then we put the electronics just on top.
Electronics are up to the builder, but Jason has a setup he trusts.
What we ended up with here is a 27-turn brushed motor. We have them available as the silent speed motor, but there are many of them out there. Closed end bell, so you can't tamper into the motor and change it. Then you get to the speed control, which in this case I'm running the Hobby Wing 1080G. Really affordable, top of the line functioning speed control. Comes with a little program box. There's a lot of little adjustments on a very affordable package with that speed control. In combination with our brushed motor, the silent speed, kind of a bulletproof combo for this so far. And it's a simple and easy to use system.
From there, it comes down to how you finish the truck, starting with body options.
The number one thing that a driver or racer always is looking at is the body combination, the body shell. This is something we've been working on for a long time. We started with a lot of off-road race bodies. In 2015, we got into the RC monster truck bodies. What I have here personally is a 1993 Ford F-250. These are licensed by Ford. We have numerous bodies under the Ford line. We have numerous bodies under the Chevrolet line and multiple wheelbases. And we have vans, panel truck bodies, SUVs, and they all have their own look and their own place in the business.
And then it's about dialing in the right wheel and tire setup.
Originally, we started with two styles, the Golden Year tire, and we have a tire called the Firestorm. But what we try to do is have a big, true to scale 66-inch tire. So we're in the 6.6 range. We have a tire called the Renegades, which is probably our most successful racing tire. A little smaller overall diameter with a wide footprint. We have two different compounds, the blue, which is traditionally what you'll use on dirt, grass, gravel. And then when you get on carpet or these other surfaces like a hard tile, we use the gold compound. And these are the Firestorm full cleat. So we made a version that has the full cleats height that was popular back in the golden days. That's kind of how we came up with a lot of these names, you know, golden years, golden days. We wanted to give a nod to these generations as much as possible. The wheels we call the tribute wheels, and was one of the very first wheels out there that fit these 12mm hex-based truck, but we had an adjustable width hex inside the wheel, so we could have three different width options with the wheels. We've incorporated that into using that tribute wheel on this Reactor truck. All of these tires are based off of something that was used in the 80s or 90s of monster truck racing, where they were the most creative. We're really getting a little bit more aggressive in the tire options because these trucks coming out, we want there to be even more options for the drivers that want to look more realistic or just want to be a little more wild.
Before drivers ever had the chance to build their own Reactor, the platform had already proven what it could do.
Crusher out of the pits and powers into the outside. Here comes the Ford to the inside. Side by side of the line.
We got to their final round to kind of test and tune a little bit. We brought two trucks out there. We did some running. They had really a difficult track layout for this. They had some very large jumps, which ended up being a really good test for the wheelbases, the equipment, how we were setting the trucks up, the tires we were using. It's hard on the equipment. It's hard to navigate. It's hard to control. The jumps are very triangle shaped. They don't have a lot of slope. They're very violent transitions when you go into these wood mud pits. I call it the hardest obstacle in RC, or these RC monster truck mud pits. In this kind of racing, you need to be able to hit the obstacle that you're running at. They don't allow you to just drive around everything. There's a 2-and-2 rule. Two tires are supposed to impact the first set or your first ramp, and you're supposed to have two tires on, either the front or the rear as you come off. We were challenged at the first race testing these trucks, kind of the Achilles heel of most of the racers, these mud pits. It was nice that they had it in there because it allowed us to try how this truck would react, the ground clearance of it. In the end, I was a little disappointed in myself because I felt like the trucks were working pretty well, but I was making some little mistakes, whether it was in the mud pit or getting the front tires on the obstacle that you're hitting or the ramps.
The first test didn't go to plan, but it proved the platform was there.
We were able to get the trucks back. We worked on them here at the shop and we came up with some changes that we wanted to make.
Back in Florida, they made their changes and came back ready.
We had great competition there. Sonny Santucci, who's probably won more of these kind of races than just about anybody out there at this point, had to race him in the finals and ended up getting the win. And so it couldn't come against a nicer guy and also a great competitor, somebody that really kind of put us on task there. Made me run at my best to get it done because he's kind of the master of the monster truck racing scene at the moment. And I think I had a little bit of a truck advantage over him, but had us sweating there.
And just like that, it proved itself.
We started with some sketches. We started with the regulator conversion. Then we made an entire truck based off of new ideas, 3D printing, aluminum, carbon fiber. We did some testing with it. We came back and said, hey, you know, we can do this better.
The fact that you completed a build, how does that kind of process feel now that we're kind of at this stage of the game?
Long.
From concept to competition, the Reactor represents the next chapter in retro monster truck performance.